Put up Raymond John Barlow. Are you Raymond John Barlow?
Yes.
Raymond John Barlow, you are charged with child stealing, contrary to Section 56 of the Offences Against the Persons Act of 1861. And the particulars of the offence are that on the 2nd day of December 1973, in the county borough of Fulchester, you did take by force away Minnie Biddulph, a child of the age of 8 years, with intent to deprive the Fulchester Borough Council, the lawful guardians of the said Minnie Biddulph, of the possession of the said Minnie Biddulph. How do you plead? Guilty or not guilty?
Look, I didn't do anything wrong. All I did was...
Yes. We'll go into all that in a moment. What we want to know is, do you plead guilty or not guilty to the charge that the learned clerk has just read out?
All I was thinking of was Minnie. I've been
Barlow,
a foster father
just
for 4.5 years.
answer the indictment. Mr. Lotterby, did you explain the procedure to your client?
Yes, my lord, I have.
You would have done the same in my place. I mean, she's just a little girl. She's only 8. Not one of you would have acted any different. I haven't done anything wrong.
Perhaps if I might have a word with my client, my lord.
Yes, I think perhaps you had better.
And she's our little girl anyway. The law had no right to come between me and my little girl. And why aren't you letting her here to talk for herself anyway?
Just 1 minute, Mr. Barlow.
I haven't done anything
Are you guilty
wrong.
or not?
All right. Not guilty.
Thank you, Mr. Barlow.
I travelled to London with the area director of Fulchester Social Services, Miss Prossett, on the evening of December the 3rd. At 3 a.m. on December the 4th, in company with 4 officers of the Metropolitan Force, I entered the premises known as Flat 14, number 12, Camden Hill Walk, and arrested the defendant Raymond Barlow after he'd offered considerable resistance. The infant, Minnie Biddulph, was also on the premises and was taken in charge by the Director of Social Services, Miss Prossett.
I presume you mean infant in the legal sense?
Yes, my lord.
How old is Minnie in fact?
She's 8, my lord.
Thank you. Go on, please.
There was a fight, you say?
Yes, sir. Barlow put up a violent struggle. 2 of my officers were knocked to the ground and I was badly kicked myself.
What condition was the child in?
She was hysterical, sir.
I see.
Yeah, she bit Miss Prossett's wrist, broke her glasses, and the police officer had to restrain her.
Now, I'd like you to describe exactly what happened, what was said, minute by minute, from the moment you forced entry to the flat.
My lord.
Oh, I beg my learned friend's pardon. I mean, of course, from the moment you sought to obtain entry.
Sir, I approached the flat at approximately 6 minutes before 3 in the morning, sir. Rang the bell for 2 minutes. Receiving no reply, but having reason to believe that the flat was occupied, I ordered an officer to break the lock. As we entered, we began to search the flat. I myself entered the living room, where I found 2 coloured men.
Now, were they in bed?
No, sir, they were both standing, but they were in pyjamas, as if they'd just been woken up. One said, "Who the hell are you?" To which I replied, "I'm a police officer. Which of you is Raymond Barlow?" The other coloured man then replied, "I am. What of it?" I said, "I have reason to believe that you've abducted a young girl named Minnie Biddulph without the consent of her parents." He said, "She ain't got no parents. I'm a foster father." I said, "I have reason to believe that your term of fostering was terminated by the Fulchester Social Services Department and you were instructed to return the child to them on December the 3rd. He replied, "That's a lie. Get out before I kick you out." I said, "Is the child on the premises?" He replied, "No." At that moment, sir, a child was heard crying out for the next room and the defendant became violent.
He became violent before you attempted to arrest him?
He did, sir.
Do you know why the child called out?
Well, I should be welcomed by Miss Prossett, sir, who had gone to look for her while I was interviewing Barlow.
Was there any further conversation?
A great number of obscenities, sir, during the struggle. I arrested Barlow, but he remained violent, almost impossible to control. I had to put the handcuffs on him.
You sustained the injury you mentioned at this time?
Yes, sir.
And in fact, it's right, is it not, that the defendant was subsequently charged with and pleaded guilty to this assault?
That's correct.
Then what happened?
And Barlow was taken to the police car outside, sir, and driven back to Fulchester.
Still in pyjamas?
No, see, he had a coat over his pyjamas.
It was freezing!
Barlow, your opportunity to have your say will come later.
But they wouldn't let me put my clothes
Until
on.
then, please remain silent.
You said there were 2 men present?
Yes, sir. The other said he was Thomas Henry Maitland, and it was his flat, and he was the brother-in-law of the defendant.
Did he attack you violently?
Oh, my lord,
That is not a leading question, Mr. Lotterby.
my learned friend was implying that the defendant attacked someone violently. No evidence has been given of this.
Didn't he attack with violence?
No, my lord, he was seeking to defend the girl from unidentified intruders.
Do you dispute that violence was involved?
No, my lord.
Then your objection is academic.
But my client heard the girl call out. 5 men broke into the flat in the middle of the night.
Sergeant, were the officers accompanying you in uniform?
Yes, my lord.
Did you clearly state that you were a policeman?
Yes, my
And
lord.
did you show your warrant?
Yes, my lord.
Go on, please, Mr. Fry.
Thank you, my lord.
But, my lord, these men were
You
shining
will have
torch-
plenty of opportunity to give your client's version, Mr. Lotterby. Fry.
Sergeant,
Mr. Maitland offered no resistance of any sort, sir.
what was his demeanour?
He seemed amazed, sir. Kept on appealing to the defendant to be calm.
And there were only these 2 men and the girl Minnie present in the flat.
Yes.
Did you then travel back to Fulchester with the accused?
Yes, sir, in the car.
Did any further conversation take place?
Yes, sir, he asked repeatedly where the child was. He said, "You must not let her go back to that old cow. She hates that old cow. She's evil. It was to stop that old cow getting her back that I took her away."
That's a lie! But I never said that! Nothing like that!
Barlow,
That's a lie!
Unless you are silent, I shall have you removed from the dock. Your opportunity to speak for yourself will come later.
But my lord!
Now that is enough. Mr. Fry.
What do you think he meant by the old cow?
I presume he was referring to the child's natural mother, sir.
Her mother.
Mrs. Biddulph, yes, sir.
Now, let's get this quite clear. He said that he took the child away to prevent her natural mother getting her back.
Obtaining custody of her, yes, sir.
And when you got back to Fulchester?
Well, I cautioned him again, charged him with child stealing under the Offences Against the Persons Act, and placed him in custody, sir. Subsequently, he made a written statement which he signed, which I now produce.
Exhibit 1, my lord. Would you read this to the court, please,
Yes,
Sergeant?
sir. I deny the charges which have been brought against me, which are entirely without foundation.
Thank you.
Where were you kicked, Sergeant?
In my private parts.
Did it hurt?
Very much.
Is that why you prevented my client contacting his solicitor?
I did not.
Both at the flat and during the journey back to Fulchester, he made frequent requests to see his solicitor, did he not?
No.
And you say he didn't mention solicitors at all?
Not a word.
Do you think that odd?
No, I didn't.
Why on earth not?
And a man like him wouldn't have one.
What do you mean, a man like him?
Just that.
You mean a coloured man?
I didn't say that.
Did you mean that?
Look, you can tell when they're being difficult.
Oh, I see, Sergeant. You thought Mr. Barlow was asking to see his solicitor in order to be difficult.
He didn't ask to see a solicitor at all.
Sergeant, you will hear my client say that twice at the flat and 3 times in the car he asked to see his solicitor, and on each occasion you replied, you can't.
No.
He's a liar.
Yes.
The effect was that no such solicitor was present when the crucial remarks were made, namely his alleged denial that the child was in the flat and his alleged admission as to why he had taken her away.
Correct.
In fact, no one was there at all apart from yourself and my client.
Yes.
And my client denies making any such remarks.
He made those remarks.
So you say. Sergeant, would you tell the jury why it was that you didn't allow the little girl to travel back to Fulchester in the car with her foster father?
That he was under arrest and she wasn't.
Yes, but surely, Sergeant, if she was
It
hysterical...
did not seem proper, sir.
Then you think it would have been kinder?
I have explained.
You were aware that Minnie has lived most happily with her foster parents for 4.5 years.
It wasn't relevant.
Were you aware of it?
No, I wasn't.
And apart from her natural distress, was she well when you saw her?
Yes, she seemed to be.
Clean, well cared for, that sort of thing.
Yes.
Did she attempt to communicate with her foster father?
Perhaps.
Did she or didn't she, Sergeant?
She did, sir.
Yet you prevented it.
It did not seem right.
Why not?
I have explained.
Nothing to do with colour?
What?
Oh, she's a white child. Did you perhaps disapprove of a white child being fostered by a coloured couple?
It's none of my
Did
business.
you disapprove, Sergeant?
I have no opinion either way.
During the arrest, you called my client a disgusting bastard, did you not?
No.
Well, he will say that you did, and also that you used far more force than the situation demanded.
He was fighting like an animal.
An animal?
With great force.
You called him an animal?
I said he was fighting like one.
Think of him as an animal?
That is ridiculous.
May I suggest to you, Sergeant, that the moment you heard about this alleged child stealing, you felt repugnance and anger. You went storming off to London because you felt so strongly about it, and that is one of the reasons why you haven't told us the truth here.
No, sir.
The statement which my client made when you got back to Fulchester was completely contrary to what you claim he said to you in the car.
Yes?
So, obviously, you questioned him about it.
No, sir.
Why not?
There didn't seem to be any point.
No point, Sergeant.
A full investigation was underway. I just took the statement.
But you didn't ask him a single question about it, not because of any judge's rules, but because there was no point. Tell me, Sergeant, are you ambitious?
What?
What's a simple question? Are you ambitious?
I like to get on, yeah.
How old are you?
32.
32. And how many years have you been a detective sergeant?
My lord, I cannot see what this can have to do with child stealing.
Mr. Lotterby?
My lord, I am seeking to demonstrate why it was that the witness prevented my client from seeing a solicitor, and also that the witness has a particular interest in obtaining a conviction in this case.
By asking how long he's been a detective sergeant?
Let us allow Mr. Lotterby a little more rope, Mr. Fry.
Very good, my lord.
I'm obliged to you, Lordship. Well, Sergeant?
11 years, sir.
11 years. And how many times during those 11 years have you been awarded your chief constable's commendation?
I never have, sir.
You never have. Receiving such a commendation, would that not help you most considerably in your chances of promotion?
I wouldn't know.
Would it hinder them?
Obviously not.
No, exactly. And is it not also a fact that if you sustain an injury once in the course of making an arrest, a chief constable's commendation very often follows?
I believe so.
Provided there is a conviction, of course. Provided there is a conviction.
Everything I've said has been the truth.
Yes, well, I'm sure the jury will have its own views as to that.
Take the Bible in your right hand and read aloud the words on the card.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
You are Frida Mary Prossett, and you are the Area Director of Social Services for the County Borough of Fulchester.
I am.
You were formerly the Children's Officer for Fulchester.
Yes.
Do you know the child, Minnie Biddulph?
Yes.
Will you tell us about her, please?
Well, her father died in 1668 when she was 2 years of age, and the following year she was taken into care by the city of Fulchester, as it was then, who assumed parental rights.
She was taken away from her mother,
Yes.
and the city assumed the legal custody of the child.
Yes, under Section 21B of the 1948 Children and Young Persons Act, as extended by Section 48, Part 2B of the Children and Young Persons Act of 1963.
Why was that?
Why was what?
Why was she taken away from her mother?
Oh, her mother was incapable of looking after her.
And so she came to your department.
Yes, we kept this little girl in care at the St. Stephen's Children's Home for 4 months, very comfortably. And then she was boarded out to Mr. and Mrs. Barlow under Section 713 of the Children and Young Persons Act of 1948, subsections 1 and 2.
That is to the defendant and his wife.
Yes.
And boarded out, that is fostered.
Yes, that's right.
They fostered her.
That's, yes.
And how long was she with them?
21,769 to 3/12/73, about 4.5 years.
Until the arrest of Mr. Barlow.
Until I terminated the fostering arrangement.
Yes, of course. But throughout this period, the parental rights remained vested in the council.
Yes, under Section
Miss
719...
Prossett, it is very kind of you, but we do not actually need the precise statutory references.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Not at all.
Did the foster parent clearly understand this position?
My lord, the witness cannot enter the defendant's mind.
Oh, well, let me put it another way for you. Had you any reason to believe that the Barlows did not understand the position?
Oh, quite the contrary. They signed the form.
What form?
Form CHB, stroke B, stroke 31, under Section... It says that they understood perfectly that they are not the legal parents and must give the child back at any time when requested.
And the Barlows signed it.
Yes.
Are you sure that Mr. Barlow understood it?
Oh, no doubt about it. He's quite bright. He's quite bright. It also says that they must not take the child away without consulting us first, and he signed that too.
Do you produce this form to the court?
Yes.
Exhibit 2, my lord. During the 4.5 years that Minnie was with the Barlows, was she happy?
I suppose so.
Miss Prossett, did you see that for yourself?
I received my social worker's report, my lord.
Oh, I see.
One of my social workers visited their home every week and reported to me.
I see. Thank you. Well, members of the jury, strictly speaking, this evidence of the girl's happiness is hearsay, and I shall instruct you not to consider it if the point is disputed or becomes material. But for the moment, I think we can go on, Mr. Lotterby.
I've no objection, Lord.
Very well. Right.
During this period, did the natural mother not take any interest in her?
No.
Has she ever taken any interest?
Only quite recently.
Can you account for this change in attitude?
Yes. Mr. and Mrs. Barlow applied to adopt Minnie.
To adopt her?
Yes. For this, the court required the natural mother's consent. Mrs. Biddulph refused to give it. She went further. She applied to the juvenile court to have her little girl restored to her.
On what grounds?
That she was about to remarry. The proper person to have her child back again.
What was the Barlow's reaction to this?
They were very angry. I could growing up, so I decided to have the little girl back into direct care. Otherwise, you can have one of these awful tug-of-love situations with the little girl being shuttled back and forth, and all of us made to look perfect fools.
Quite so. When did you decide to do this?
On 1/12/73.
And how did you inform the Barlows of it?
Oh, following normal procedure, I sent round one of my social workers, Miss Leighton Smith, to tell them about it, to discuss it, and I followed that up with a letter.
And you now produce a copy of that letter to the court. It's dated the 1st of December 1973, isn't it?
Yes, that's right.
Exhibit 3, my lord. What does the letter say?
That I would be calling to collect Minnie at 9 a.m. sharp on the morning of 3/12/73, and would they please have her ready for collection with her belongings packed into one suitcase.
And did you go yourself to collect her?
I did, with Miss Leighton Smith.
And what did you find?
They had gone. The flat was empty.
How could you tell?
They had left the door open. The television was even left on, though as it was 9 in the morning, there was no picture. But there was every sign of a hurried departure. My social worker said that...
my lord,
Miss Prossett, we cannot hear that.
What action did you then take?
I went straight to the police.
And as a result?
As a result, I went with a police officer to the London flat and took Minnie back into care.
Thank you, Miss Prossett.
Well, we can't have people defying the law, can we?
You've never met any of them, have you, Miss Prossett?
Who?
These people whose lives and happiness you were deciding. You never met any of them.
Well, I met Minnie.
Yes, but not until you woke her up at 3 o'clock in the morning. No wonder she woke up screaming.
Mr. Lotterby.
I mean, of course, to be woken up by a perfect stranger. What did your lordship think I meant?
Never mind, Mr. Lotterby.
Apart from that occasion, Miss Prossett, your knowledge of this case is entirely second-hand,
My
is it not?
social
Yes, your
workers.
social workers, but you yourself.
I am an administrator.
Precisely. So you cannot say that your social worker did inform Mr. Barlow of his legal obligation to
The
return the girl.
report said so.
But you were not present.
I wrote a letter to them.
Ah, well, do you know it was delivered?
Of course.
How?
I posted it.
It wasn't delivered by hand.
I sent a letter to
You
them.
can't say they ever received it.
But of course they received
Letters
it.
do get lost in the post, you know. Get misdirected, fail to arrive. It's odd, isn't it, that such a desperately important letter wasn't delivered by hand? How far is the Barlow's home from your office?
Some way.
Castle Street to Magazine Road.
Quite a way.
200 yards, Miss Prossett. 3 minutes walk. No messenger could have taken it.
They don't deliver letters.
Did you ask them?
But that's not in their duties.
Taken it round yourself.
But there was the post. It's
You liked the
perfect.
Barlows, Miss Prossett?
What do you mean?
You liked them?
I've nothing against them.
Oh, come, Miss Prossett, is it not a fact that you have been implacably opposed all along to their having charge of Minnie?
My lord, all matters connected with adoption and fostering are highly confidential.
Yes, I do appreciate that, Miss Prossett, but we have to know. Provided, of course, that it is strictly relevant.
My lord, it is.
Very well.
Have you not at every stage opposed the Barlows' fostering of Minnie, and are you not now opposing their adoption of her?
They are not right for her.
So you have opposed them?
Matching parents and children is very difficult.
So you opposed
It's not an easy decision.
Did you oppose them, Miss
Nothing
Prossett?
to do with their colour.
Please answer the question.
Haven't I?
No.
What was it?
Have you always opposed the Barlows in their proceedings towards Minnie?
Yes.
Why?
They are not right for her.
You produced a report which was highly hostile to my client, did you not?
My lord, I fail to see how this is relevant.
Mr. Lotterby?
My lord, I wish to show that the witness's total opposition to the proposed adoption has coloured her evidence. If Mr. Barlow is convicted, it's extremely unlikely that he will be allowed to adopt this little girl, which is exactly what this witness wants.
Yes. Very well.
Thank you, my lord. Why did you produce so hostile a report?
They are not right for Minnie.
Does Minnie think that?
She's only a child.
Why was she taken from her natural mother?
Mrs. Biddulph had emotional problems.
She drank
She's given it up now.
and would disappear for days on end and then return to knock Minnie about.
Yes.
And yet you think in effect she would make a better mother than Mrs. Barlow?
They are not suitable as people.
In what way?
Their way of life.
Yes.
Well, I didn't think it was right. And then there's their house.
Oh, what's wrong with their house?
It's unhygienic.
You have a report to say so?
No.
Oh, you've been there, had you?
No.
How on earth can you say?
Reading between the lines.
Of what?
Reports. Mr. Barlow works in a garage, you know. They have no children.
So?
Well, they might not be able to cope.
Why, because he works in a garage? Oh, Miss Prossett, I put it to you that you are highly prejudiced against the defendant. You would do almost anything to obstruct their adoption of Minnie.
No.
And I suggest to you that that letter may never have been sent.
It was. Here is a copy.
Was that any proof it was sent?
Mr. Lotterby, they were breaking the law.
Ah, yes. Form CH/B/31. Now, you say it obliged them to inform you if they go away.
Yes.
But it doesn't.
Yes, it does. Of course it does.
Where?
There at the bottom.
Would you like to read it out to us?
It says they're obliged to tell us if they move about.
Does it not say, if we decide to move, we will notify the council of our new address before we go?
That's right.
Nothing about going away for the weekend.
But foster parents always do tell us.
But they're not obliged to, Miss Prossett. Tell me, why did you yourself go to collect Minnie that morning?
It was my job.
No, it wasn't.
My social worker needed support.
Oh, no, Miss Prossett, it's not a fact that your social worker was implacably opposed to everything you were doing about Minnie.
She may have been.
Was she or wasn't she, Miss Prossett?
Yes.
And that such was your opposition to the Barlows that you went round yourself to force the issue the way you wanted it to go.
No.
How many years have you been the director of the social services?
3. And before that, 2 years as a children's officer.
And in all that time, how many times have you personally visited one of your homes?
Hundreds.
No, you haven't, Miss Prossett. That was when you were a social worker yourself. Since you were promoted, Miss Prossett.
I can't remember.
You can't remember. In 5 years, Miss Prossett, how many times have you yourself visited one of your homes?
Well, does it matter?
Is it not a fact that this is the first time, Miss Prossett? The very first time you've ever done so? Miss Prossett.
Yes.
Join us tomorrow in the Crown Court to hear more of the case of the Queen against Barlow. Minnie Biddulph is a tug-of-love child. Fostered out to Mr. and Mrs. Barlow when she was only 3, they now wish to adopt her. Her natural mother, Mrs. Biddulph, has opposed this and is trying to get Minnie back. During the dispute, Mr. Barlow, who's West Indian, suddenly disappeared with the child and was later arrested in London with her. He's charged with child stealing. Minnie's natural mother is now giving evidence to the Crown Court.
That the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
You are Matilda May Biddulph of 17 Raleigh Way, Fulchester, and you are a widow.
I am.
You are the natural mother of the little girl, Minnie, who is the subject of this case.
She's my baby, yes.
What did your husband die of, Mrs. Biddulph?
Cancer.
I'm sorry.
Well, I couldn't cope.
Naturally.
It was my grief, you see. I had emotional problems.
Do you still have these problems?
No, I gave it up 2 years ago.
Quite so. And your way of life?
Oh, I've turned my back on the past. I shall shortly remarry.
You have, as it were, turned over a new leaf.
Oh, yes.
And you are, of course, on oath.
Yes, I am.
Yes. Now, I'd like to ask you about your relationship with the Barlows during the 4.5 years that Minnie was fostered by them.
Oh, there wasn't one.
Really?
I wasn't welcome.
The Barlows didn't welcome you.
That's right. I didn't see my little girl in 4.5 years.
And in all that time, you had no communication with the defendant at all?
Not till recently.
Then what happened?
We spoke 3 times by phone.
Now, would you tell us about these telephone conversations, please? The first one?
I picked up the phone.
Yes. When was this?
Last November.
You're sure of that?
Oh, yes, I remember, because it was just after my solicitor had asked to have Minnie back.
Oh, after you had opposed the Barlow's application to adopt and commenced proceedings of your own to seek to restore the custody of Minnie to yourself.
That's right, yes.
Can you remember what day of the week this was?
Yes, it was Saturday afternoon.
Yes.
Oh, well, the phone rang.
Where was it?
Beside the bed. I've been having a little nap.
Ah.
Well, I picked it up, and this voice said, "This is Mr. Barlow."
Yes.
And I said, "What do you want?" And he said, "You leave Minnie alone, you old cow. She's happy with us." And I said, "If you've got anything to say it to my solicitor." And he says, "You leave Minnie alone. She's happy with us. And if you try any hanky-panky, I'll take her away where the council can't find her and they can stuff their orders."
I'll take her away to where the council cannot find her and they can stuff their orders. He said that.
Yes.
Those precise words.
As God's my judge.
And was there any further conversation?
No, I hung up.
Now the second telephone call.
I phoned then. I spoke to Mrs. Barlow this time.
Why did you phone?
Oh, my solicitor said I should. He said I should go and see Minnie, or it might look bad if I was applying for custody.
So you phoned to ask when you could visit?
Yes, that's right.
When was this?
The next Saturday, the one after, in the afternoon.
You're sure of that?
Oh, yes.
And what happened?
This Barlow woman, she got hysterical. She said the council had said they were going to take Minnie away, and I was to blame.
Can you remember her precise words?
We've had this council person round to tell us we've got to hand Minnie back, but we're not going to.
You're sure of that?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Then what happened?
Then I asked when I could come and see Minnie, and she says, never, and hung up.
So she terminated the conversation?
Yes.
And now the third phone call.
Oh, he phoned then, after he'd run off with my little girl.
My lord, she couldn't know that.
Mrs. Biddulph, you must confine yourself to telling us only of what you knew at the time. Now, when Mr. Barlow telephoned you, did you know he was calling from London?
Yes, because he'd run off with Minnie.
But you could not have known that at the time.
That he was phoning from London?
That he had run off with Minnie.
Yes.
But how could you possibly know that?
Well, I heard the pips. Miss Prossett told me they couldn't find her.
Oh, I see. Miss Prossett had told you what had happened.
Yes, Miss Prossett phoned me that morning. She was very upset. She said that Mr. Barlow had run off with Minnie, but not to worry because they would find her. And if I heard anything, to let her know straight away.
Yes. Mr. Fry.
So he phoned from London?
Yes, after he'd run off with Minnie. And he says, if you go ahead with this trying to get her back, I'll kick your something teeth in.
Something?
He used a swear word, my lord.
Which upset you, no doubt.
Well, it wasn't nice.
Yes. Mr. Fry.
So you understood from these conversations that the Barlows clearly understood that they had a legal obligation to return Minnie, that they had been told to do so, and that in abducting Minnie, Mr. Barlow was deliberately seeking to evade the law.
Exactly, yes.
Thank you, Mrs. Biddulph.
Mrs. Biddulph, your husband died of cirrhosis of the liver, did he not?
Eh?
Not cancer.
He died of cancer.
Well, it doesn't say so on his death certificate.
Doesn't it?
No.
Well, I never knew that.
You didn't know what he died of?
They told me cancer.
You didn't know he was an alcoholic?
He liked to drink.
He was a registered alcoholic. He died of cirrhosis of the liver at the age of 32 whilst undergoing intensive treatment for alcoholism.
Well, I never knew that.
Oh, of course you did, Mrs. Biddulph. You've been lying to the court about it, haven't you?
I didn't know he had sclo what it was you said.
When you had these 3 phone calls, were you drunk?
Eh?
Were you drunk at the time?
No.
You sure?
Of course I'm sure.
But you were in bed?
Yes.
Saturday afternoon?
Well, it's a free country.
And it is your custom, is it not, to get blind drunk from Friday night through the entire weekend?
Lord, this is outrageous.
outrageous.
Mr. Lotterby is entitled to ask these questions. Besides, you put in her character, Mr. Fry.
A reformed character, my lord. Mrs. Biddulph doesn't deny that her life after 2 years ago had its faults, but she has turned over a new leaf. Besides, the evidence I have adduced is all related to the period subsequent to this.
I don't see that that makes any difference.
But, my lord,
You can say what you like about the matter, Mr. Fry, in your closing speech. Mr. Lotterby?
My lord. Mrs. Biddulph, you have 8 convictions for being drunk and disorderly, do you not?
Do I have to answer that?
Why shouldn't you?
Well, it's personal.
It is also relevant.
Well, I couldn't cope.
After the death of your husband.
Yes,
So you do have 8 convictions for drunkenness,
perhaps.
as well as 2 for assaulting the police, 3 for being in charge of a motor vehicle whilst under the influence of alcohol, and 5 for driving the wrong way up a one-way street.
I haven't counted.
Well, I have, Mrs. Biddulph. I have. Tell me, where does your fiancé live?
17 Raleigh Way?
That's your address, isn't it?
Yes.
I see. And where was he when these phone conversations took place?
Next to me?
He was next to you. What, in bed?
Yes, he was watching the International.
You were side by side, in bed, in the middle of the afternoon, watching the football on the television.
Well, it was cold out.
Yes, your fiancé, he must have heard your side of the conversation.
No, he didn't listen.
Well, did you comment on the conversation immediately afterwards?
Eh?
Did you tell him what had been said?
No.
With conversations like that, why ever not?
Well, I told you he was watching the football. Besides, he don't talk much.
Oh, come now, Mrs. Biddulph, this is all a pack of lies, isn't it?
No.
I put it to you that the first 2 telephone conversations did take place, but their content was nothing like you described. In the first call, you spoke to Mrs. Barlow, asked to see Minnie. She simply said no. In the second, you spoke to Mr. Barlow. He simply told you to leave Minnie alone.
I am telling the truth.
Well, that's a change, isn't it?
What do you mean?
You did not plead not guilty to every single one of these 18 charges I've listed?
Yes, but...
And were you not found guilty on every single charge?
Well, yes, but
then
that
you
was
were lying,
different.
were you not?
No.
It is, in fact, your custom to lie in courts of law when it's convenient for you to do so.
I am telling the truth.
You don't want Minnie to be adopted by the Barlows, do you?
No.
Why not?
I'm her mother.
Yes, indeed you are, Mrs. Biddulph, and you would do anything to stop them from adopting Minnie, would you not?
Well,
Even to lying on oath,
no.
which, after all, you are fully accustomed to doing.
I'm her mother. I just want her back.
You wish to re-examine Mr. Fry?
No, Lord.
Thank you, madam. You may leave the witness box.
I call Miss Elizabeth Leighton Smith.
What is your religion?
I wish to affirm.
Read aloud the words on this card.
I do solemnly, sincerely, and truly declare and affirm that the evidence I shall give be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
You are Miss Elizabeth Leighton Smith, and you are a social worker employed by the County Borough of Fulchester.
Yes.
What is your particular field of work, Miss Leighton Smith?
Childcare and adoption.
Do you know the accused?
Yes.
How did you get to know him?
He has fostered Minnie Biddulph for the last 4.5 years, and he wants to adopt her. I have been the social worker concerned.
So you know all of them pretty well.
Yes.
Did you visit the accused on December the 1st, 1973?
Yes.
Why?
I had to tell them that my superior, Miss Prossett, had decided to take Minnie away from them, and they were legally obliged to return her.
And did you in fact tell them that? Did you in fact tell them that?
I can't be sure.
You're not sure?
That's right.
Well, surely this was the whole purpose of your going.
One has to be diplomatic. It was a terrible thing to have to tell a family, so I approached it in a roundabout way. I think now that perhaps I did not make what I was saying then absolutely clear.
Leighton Smith, surely you must be aware that this whole case depends upon whether or not Mr. Barlow was told that the local authority were taking Minnie back.
Yes.
But surely you must know if you told him or not.
No.
Then what did you say to him?
I can't remember.
What? Nothing of what you said?
Not a word.
grateful to your lordship for the adjournment, which has given me time to make certain inquiries about this witness.
Very well.
Lord, I beg leave to treat the witness as hostile. I submit that her demeanour shows her to be hostile, and that there are also certain other factors which your lordship will be aware of which have a bearing on the matter.
Very well, Mr. Lotby.
Under the circumstances, my lord, I'll not make an issue of it.
Go on. But first, I wish to get this quite clear. Is it the defence's case that the defendant was not properly informed, either by letter or in person, that his responsibility as a foster parent had been terminated?
My lord, it is.
And thus, in going away for the weekend, he was acting perfectly lawfully?
Yes, my lord.
And it is precisely this point, whether or not he was properly informed, which is at issue.
Yes, my lord.
Thank you. Now, let's get on.
Did you make a statement to the police about this matter on December the 5th?
Yes.
Is that it?
I should
Is that
explain...
your statement?
Yes.
Exhibit 4.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, my lord. Does it not state that you clearly informed the Barlows of their legal obligation to return the child?
Yes, but...
Did you not immediately after the interview with the Barlows write a report to your superior, which also stated that you had made the position quite clear to them?
Yes.
And this was written the same day as the interview itself. Exhibit 5, my lord.
Yes.
Was that not the truth?
I've been thinking about it.
You've been thinking about it. Have you discussed the matter with the defendant?
Of course.
I mean, since he spirited Minnie away.
No.
You're a good friend of the defendant, aren't you?
I know him.
Socially as well as professionally?
Yes.
How well do you know him?
Pretty well.
You're unmarried, aren't you?
Yes, but I've not had an affair with him.
Or been intimate with him?
There's a difference.
Would it be right to describe you as having a close personal friendship with him?
We have interests in common.
What interests?
Social matters.
Yes?
That's all.
What social matters?
Race relations work.
Are you both members of a particular race relations organisation?
Yes.
Which one?
The Fulchester Immigrants Association.
And the work of the association is to reduce racial tension, to create, as it were, a harmony between the races.
More or less.
So it would be a notable feather in the association's cap if it succeeded in engineering the adoption of a white child by coloured parents.
I wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know?
It might.
Come, of course it would. Provided there was enough publicity attached. Wouldn't it, Miss Leighton-Smith? Is that why you contacted the Daily Chronicle on this matter?
What?
You did contact them, didn't you, on the day Minnie disappeared?
They phoned me.
They phoned you?
That's right.
About Minnie?
About another matter.
Oh, they phoned you about another matter, so you told them about Minnie. Whereupon they published a huge feature about the case, illustrated with photographs of Minnie and her two families. Where did they get those photographs from, I wonder?
I don't know.
Are you sure you don't know?
I don't know where they got them.
Is it not a fact that the only place they could have gotten them from was Minnie's fostering file?
Possibly.
Possibly? How long have you been a social worker?
9 years.
And you don't know?
I knew we had copies.
Oh, copies. It appears from the article that they also had a good deal of inside information. Where do you suppose they got that from?
I don't know.
You've no idea?
No.
Not from you?
I only gave them the most basic facts. The rest they must have found for themselves.
But even the most basic facts shouldn't have been given without consulting your superior, should they? And you didn't consult with her, did you?
No.
No, indeed. Come, Miss Leighton-Smith, you provided all this material, didn't you?
No.
6 days after this article appeared, did not the newspaper pay to the Fulchester Immigrants Association a cheque for £75?
I wouldn't know.
You have no knowledge of that.
No.
Unusual in itself, isn't it? Newspapers don't often make charitable donations.
I wouldn't know.
They only make payments like that for leads, stories, and so forth, don't they?
Why don't you ask them?
Oh, I did, Miss Leighton-Smith, I did. It was for, and I quote, source material. Though, of course, they wouldn't say what. Why did they telephone you?
What?
Oh, have you forgotten already? You told the court that they had telephoned you about another matter. What was it?
Oh, they were making a survey about changes in the adoption law.
And did they ask for you by name?
I don't remember.
Well, surely they should have spoken to your superior, Miss Prossett.
Possibly.
What was the name of the man you say telephoned you?
I didn't ask his name.
You're lying, aren't you?
No.
You have been lying all along. You telephoned the newspaper. It is you who provided all this material. It's you who provided everything. I put it to you, Miss Leighton-Smith, that this whole affair was arranged between you and the defendant in order to provoke an public outcry, that you discussed it with him and planned it fully at every stage.
That is quite untrue.
Is it? I have here a file of departmental memos sent by Miss Prossett to you.
You have my what?
I have copies of departmental memos sent by Miss Prossett to you in
That's
1973. It was provided for the prosecution.
By Miss Prossett.
By the counsel?
You shouldn't use them.
Why? Does it upset you? You've something to hide, perhaps?
Of course not.
Really? Now, you said that you weren't sure whether you'd made the legal position clear to Mr. Barlow.
Yes,
Because you had to approach the matter so delicately.
that's right.
And yet on 2 occasions last year, you were reprimanded for being too blunt in delicate situations.
Was what?
Oh, come, surely you remember.
That's untrue.
Oh, that's a lie too, is it?
Yes.
But it's the subject of several memoranda.
Miss Prossett did speak about it, but she was wrong. I thought she had accepted that.
So you deny that any such reprimand took place?
I deny there was any cause for such a reprimand, quite the contrary.
You don't get on with your superior, do you?
No.
In fact, you're implacably opposed to everything she's doing about Minnie.
I think her report and recommendation is evil, bigoted, ignorant, and without the slightest regard for Minnie's welfare.
So you'd do anything you could to upset that particular apple cart, wouldn't you? To the extent not only of collusion with the defendant, but also of lying on oath.
I am telling the truth.
So there was no collusion?
Certainly not.
Really? I see that for the 48 hours after you went to the Barlow's home to collect Minnie with your superior, you were away sick.
Was I?
You don't remember?
Not clearly.
Well, you're not often sick. In fact, you hadn't been sick for 7 years, and you don't remember?
Oh, yes, I remember now.
Oh, good. What was the matter with you?
I had flu.
Did you call a doctor?
No?
And yet you were back at work within 48 hours as bright as a button.
Yes.
But for that 48 hours, you were in bed, in your own flat, with flu.
That's right.
Right. Is your car a blue Volkswagen, registration number HYD 975?
Yes.
Then how is it that you were fined for a parking offence in the very middle of the 48-hour period that you say you were in bed with flu? On December the 4th at 9:20 a.m., your car was found parked on a double yellow line. You received a parking summons and you paid it by post without disputing it, stating that you yourself were the driver. That's right, isn't it? Now, how can you explain that? And where was the car parked?
That has nothing to do with it.
The address, the house outside which the car was
don't
standing.
see what...
It was 12 Camden Hill Walk, London, wasn't it? The very fact where the defendant was in hiding with Minnie, wasn't it? Well...
Yes.
So you have been lying to this court?
Yes.
Lies, Miss Leighton-Smith. Lies. Though you've been protesting all along that you were telling the truth.
I must explain...
How can you seriously expect the jury to believe what you now say about informing the Barlows? Is it not crystal clear that your original statement to the police was correct, and that you did make the Barlows' legal position perfectly clear to them?
Everything I did was for Minnie.
No further questions, Willard.
Miss Leighton-Smith, you've just made the most serious admission, you know.
I know.
Which I've no doubt his lordship will not allow to pass without serious consequences to yourself. Are you by nature a dishonest person?
No.
And what was it that prompted you to lie?
This little girl, Minnie, has had a terrible life. She has been deprived of the security of a good home owing to an anomaly in the law. And I think she has suffered because of it. Everything I have done has been to put her first. I want a good, strong home for her. My lord, I'm deeply sorry for lying to the court, but...
Do not address me, address the jury.
And not telling the truth has been only because of that.
Would you tell us your qualifications, Miss Leighton-Smith?
I have a diploma in social studies.
Yes.
That's all that's relevant.
Your MA, isn't that relevant? And your BSc?
Those are general
It is true,
degrees,
is it
nothing
not,
to
that
do
you
with...
are more highly qualified than Miss Prossett or any of your colleagues in your department.
I am well qualified.
Far more intelligent.
Obviously, I cannot comment on that.
Would it be true to say that you may well have a brilliant career in front of you?
Perhaps.
Is it not also true that Mr. Thompson, the director of Fulchester Social Services, has twice recommended your work in the most complimentary terms, describing it as showing the highest professionalism and dedication?
Yes.
Therefore, is it not a fact that your professional opinion about Minnie and her future carries far more weight and authority than any other person connected with this case?
I suppose so.
Thank you, Miss Leighton-Smith.
Do you wish to re-examine Mr. Fry?
Only very briefly, my lord. But you are a liar.
In the matter of...
Answer the question, did you lie?
Yes.
About some of the most serious aspects of this case?
Yes.
Then I'm quite sure that the jury will make up their own mind as to the value of your evidence. Thank you, my lord.
Very well, you may leave the witness box, Miss Leighton-Smith.
That concludes the case for the prosecution, my lord.
My first witness, my lord, I call the defendant, Raymond John Barlow. your occupation, Mr. Barlow?
I have a little garage.
Petrol filling station?
No, a repair garage. I'm a mechanic.
You've had it long?
Yes, 7 years.
You own it?
And manage it. That's right.
I see. Now, 5 years ago, you and your wife applied to foster Minnie Biddulph.
Yes.
Now, would you please tell the court why you did that?
We weren't going to let that old cow have her.
Would you explain what you mean and without being abusive?
Well, that mother of hers is an evil woman. We knew Charles Biddulph a long time ago. How he could have got caught up in anything like her.
Minnie's father?
Oh, yes. He was an old friend. He used to have these cars, you know, and then
He ran a car hire firm.
That's right.
So when he died, did you
Oh,
find...
that was terrible. Awful.
Yes, but what happened when he died?
What?
Well, I mean, did you observe what happened to Minnie's home life?
Oh, yes. The old cow went in the bottle.
I must warn you not to describe people in abusive terms, but to name them properly.
Sorry, my lord. Minnie's mother. She used to go out with anything on 2 legs. And poor little Minnie, she was just left at home, maybe for days. Well, we used to go around and get her and look after her and clean her up and give her a square meal, that sort of thing. And she used to have these big bruises too, all across here. Well, we told the NSPCC.
Did they take any action?
Yeah, sure. They took her into care. She went into this home. Well, the people were nice enough, but that was their job, you see. And we were the only folks she really knew, so we said, look, we'll have her. And she's been our daughter ever since.
Has it been a successful relationship?
Yes.
You have no children of your own?
She's our child!
Yes, all right, Mr. Barlow, I do see that.
Good.
Join us tomorrow in the Crown Court for the final day of The Queen against Barlow.